Joining me now is the Minister for Agriculture and Deputy Leader of the National Party in Canberra, Senator Bridget McKenzie. Bridget, great to have you on the show. Thank you for your time tonight.
Great to be with you, Peter.
Just unravel for me, if you will, please, the $100 million. What is it actually intended to do, and what does it build on in terms of recent announcements made by the Prime Minister?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Well, you know, ever since Scott Morrison became the Prime Minister, he made the drought his number one priority. It was day one on the job, and I was part of his trip to Quilpie back then. He made a commitment to Australian farmers, agriculture and regional communities that we would stand with them now and into the future and right through the recovery phase. And we've had a raft of initiatives and suites of support which we've been rolling out since then. The announcement on Friday, $100 million, it's quite literally got off one plane, landed in Sydney from the US, got on another and headed up to Dalby, where we're on David Gooding's farm, just out of Dalby, and announced $100 million worth of support. Now, primarily, the majority of that support was direct financial support to farmers who are doing it tough through a radical simplification of the Farm Household Allowance program, additional rural financial counselling, and Drought Communities program, which gives $3,000 cash and vouchers into the hands of affected farmers so that they can keep the lights on, feed the family, make sure they've got petrol in the car, etc. Those very much basic living essentials are being provided to our farmers who are doing it tough. So the majority of the money went there. A small proportion, obviously, went to communities to keep money spinning around those areas out in regional Australia that are doing it tough, and those small businesses in many of those regional towns who are also feeling the pinch of the drought as farmers stop spending money in town due to their own circumstances. So we give $1 million to local councils to spend on projects where they employ locals and procure their goods locally. But the majority of the money was, Farm Household Allowance, which we've made significant changes following the review we did earlier this year. We've addressed all 6 of the recommendations of the review, which was led by farmers, and we're looking at radically simplifying the forms they have to fill out, making sure they've got caseworkers so they're not having to explain to different Centrelink staffers, up to 20 at a time, their circumstances. And also,
these are really simple.
Peter, sorry. Yeah, exactly right. Like right now, there's simple changes that we can make right now. Right now, if you're applying for Farm Household Allowance and you're in a couple, you both have to fill out the paperwork, which is just ridiculous because you're one household. We're getting rid of that, and that will actually simplify that for up to 80% of farmers right now. We're changing the way we treat off-farm assets. At the moment, you're cut off if you've got an off-farm asset over $390,000. We're going to roll that into our on-farm asset threshold, which is $5.5 million. So there's a raft of changes we're making to make it simpler and easier, and so that upwards of 34,000 farmers that we, from our data, can see are going through hardship will be able to access this much-needed payment to give them a cash injection each and every fortnight.
Now, just correct me if I've got this wrong, but I had understood previously with a farm household assistance, you could only access it once a lifetime. Now you'll be able to access it if you're hit by drought more often, and I think it's capped every 4 years within a decade-long period, and then the clock resets. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was one of the, issues. We've had Farm Household Allowance for the last 4 years. 12,500 Australian farmers have accessed the payment. A little over 40% have actually come off it before they've reached their 4-year period. But the reality was you only got to access it once in what may be a 6-decade business proposition on a farm. And we all know when you're producing food in this country, you're going to be hit by, a significant event such as the drought we're experiencing now, floods, etc., every decade or so. And so we need to build that into the support structure that we've got. So now every 10 years, farmers will be able to access the Farm Household Allowance to give them that much needed household support while they go through tough times. And the other thing, Peter...
All right, I want to just move to another thing. Just another issue, we'll run out of time otherwise.
Yep.
You just mentioned before the $1 million going into councils. We've had this issue with the Moyne Council. I want to play a comment from the Mayor and we'll come back to you.
The funding offer was on the table. It did require an application, but we were informed that we would qualify for it. We have rejected it. When it's under the Drought Communities program, we are not an NZ down here, and we welcome that the federal government are doing an audit on the data which showed that we were.
That's the Mayor of the Moyne Council, Mick Wolfe. Now, I want to say first and foremost, good on the Moyne Council for knocking back the money, because it's all taxpayers' dollars here. It's not government money from some special tree down the backyard in Canberra. So good on them saying we don't need it. We might down the track, who knows, but we're not going to take it up right now. But Bridget, you're from Victoria. You and I know Moyne is not an area that you think of immediately when it comes to drought. Didn't someone do a bit of fact-checking in Canberra?
Oh, look, you know Millewa's doing it tough west of Mildura, north central Vic and east Gippsland. Wimmera's going okay, and they've had some fantastic spring rains. The Minister responsible's checking out the data, etc., and we'll see what that says at the time. But Peter, I think what you say about Moyne themselves, I think, just speaks volumes about how regional Australians, no matter where they're from, stand united when others are going through difficulty. And for Moyne to stand up and say, you know what, we don't need this right now, we may in the future, we'll come back to you, but it should go to someone more deserving. And, you know, I guess we'll be going to the next council on the list and offering it to them. OK, two things I want to raise before we go. Dams, I know that you are not the water minister, but you're a National Party deputy leader, and I know that you would be getting commentary everywhere you go about the issue of water management and dams in particular. Before the coalition was elected in 2013, you had a plan of over 100 dams being built over many decades in Australia, but there was a really structured program. I know the government is doing things in relation to water management, but most of it, Bridget, is agriculture. It's lifting levee banks. It's changing the structure of existing dams. But when are we going to see substantial new dams in greenfield sites right around Australia? Yeah, Peter, you touch on a topic that anyone that cares about growth and development out in the regions is very, very passionate about, and that is actually about capturing, storing and using water as best as we can, because for us, water means wealth. We are actually having shovels in the ground. You're from the Mallee. You know what a game changer the Howard government Wimmera Mallee pipeline was for those communities and agricultural production. So we've got Scottsdale, we've got the South Loddon pipeline, etc., happening right now. But when it comes to actually building those iconic dam projects, you know, we have the money on the table. We are ready to go, and it gets a little tiring, in fact incredibly frustrating, that state governments who are supposed to partner with us, I mean, we're the Commonwealth governments, we can't just jump in our diggers and our graders and grab a construction crew and just roll up to your local state and start digging. We have to have willing partners, and the reality is, yes, New South Wales finally there, which is great, but Queensland has shown an absolute recalcitrance to get on board. The CSIRO has done studies showing there's numerous dam projects across particularly northern Australia that we could be investing in together. And my own home state of Victoria, Lisa Neville has come out last week and just saying no dams in Victoria. It's simply not acceptable. The best time to build them is now, when we're going through drought. Just Rookwood Weir, for instance, is a classic case in point, and hats off to Michelle Landry up in Rockhampton, who's actually calling on a rally on Thursday on the banks of the Fitzroy River there at 9 a.m. I'm going to be there, wear a green shirt, to actually stand up against this no dam agenda. That weir was going to produce 2,100 jobs, make sure that agriculture up there had 42,000 megalitres, which was really spurring a lot of investment, excitement about central Queensland becoming the food bowl of Southeast Asia. And the Palaszczuk government has again decided they're going to redesign the project, halve the amount of water being able to be siphoned off for agricultural use, and it is just not good enough. We need partners with certainty so we can actually get the shovels in the ground and get these things built and start capturing that water instead of Rockhampton Main Street being underwater every few years. Let's capture it, use it, but we can't do it on our own, Peter, and you know that.
Best of luck with that
thank
rally.
you.
And I had some green shirts from the organisation on my show just recently, so I know they've got a lot of support out there in the community. All the best. We'll stay right across this issue because I know my viewers are hot to trot on the issue of water. Bridget McKenzie, thanks very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, mate.